Hello and welcome to another episode of our Indie Dev Spotlight Recap videos. Every Wednesday night, we play indie games submitted by developers, and these videos show off those titles. If you'd like me to play your game for a future video, please don't hesitate to get in touch. And for our first game, this is Adaptatank. This is a top-down twin-stick shooter with some light puzzle elements to it. The game involves us controlling this tank as we are trying to stop the bad guys from taking over. The key aspect of the game is that we get these various modules that you see in the upper right hand corner of the screen that change the properties of our tank, increasing speed, more ammo, and so on. And then we have further modifiers that you see in the bottom right, including additional shot, bouncing bullets, tri-shot, etc., etc. And we unlock these items by finding them in the world itself. Oh, and as you can see, we kind of broke through the bridge there. And the game is pretty much set on a linear campaign as you move from chapter to chapter, completing your various objectives, fighting bosses, and so on. Puzzle solving comes into play sometimes with finding which way you need to go, opening up doors, and everybody's favorite, putting blocks and boxes down on pressure switches. The basic gameplay works. I didn't have any issues controlling the tank, and again, this is set up as a twin-stick shooter. But I think for a lot of you watching this, you can probably tell that from an aesthetic and production value standpoint, Adaptatank is on the low end of the scale. There doesn't seem to be any strong aesthetic to this game. And that first look will probably, sadly, keep a lot of people from checking this one out. And I did like the game, but it didn't seem like there was any real sense of gameplay growth, introducing new threats, new systems, etc. If you're looking for a simple or a very easy to get into action game, I would say give this one a check. But if you're hoping for something with a far more in-depth experience, then I don't think this game is going to work for you. Moving on, we have Wavey the Rocket. This is a kind of hard to describe kind of game that it's an action title where our primary form of control is changing and affecting the trajectory of our friend here. As you can see, the red line is our guide. And by pushing the control sticks in various patterns or directions, we'll change the frequency or the various size and shape of our wave there. And the idea is that we want to avoid things trying to kill us while picking up the useful items and, of course, all those lovely MacGuffins. And this is one of those games that if you remember that puzzle, there's a puzzle in a Resident Evil 2 remake that's very similar to playing this game. If you did not like that kind of control, then you will most definitely not be enjoying Wavey the Rocket, as the game is really designed around kind of making something that is not exactly the most precise thing, very precise in terms of trying to collect all the MacGuffins and avoid all the obstacles. And I was definitely having some trouble with this one, as I'm more used to, again, direct controlling my character. But the game has a very clean cartoon aesthetic, and there are a lot of challenges. Completing levels in a certain amount of time, collecting all the bonus items, as you can see as I'm trying to do my best right there. But yeah, this is one of those games that it's either going to be very intuitive for you, or you will just not be able to solve this no matter how much you try. But if this kind of gameplay suits you or you think that you can handle it, I would say give this one a check. But if you're like me and you're just going nope as you're watching this footage, then you probably want to steer clear from it. With that, we're going to do our break now, and when we come back, we got 2 more games to look at for the showcase video. And now for a quick shout out to our current Game Wisdom supporters and sponsors. Going forward, all Patreon supporters will get early access to our videos. And if you'd like to continue this discussion on game design, be sure to check out our Discord channel, linked down below. If you're looking for more wisdom about game design, be sure to check out my latest offering of books, 20 Essential Games to Study, aimed for first-time developers and students looking for some inspiration for their upcoming games, and Game Design Deep Dive Platformers if you're interested in anything regarding 2D and 3D platforming design. They're both available in print, digital, and wherever books are being sold. For our next title, we turn to Mayhem in Single Valley. This is a prologue titled Confessions. And while we played this, I believe they have updated the prologue as well as working on the main game. But our story is we play as this kid here who is basically blamed for essentially the zombie apocalypse. And it's up to us to prove ourselves innocent and figure out what is happening. And the game, as you can see, is played kind of similar to that of a 16-bit style Zelda game, with the top-down viewpoint and focus on that. The key element that is unique is that it doesn't seem like we actually have any permanent weapons. Instead, we pick up items that can be used to either bait enemies, distract them, or get us around various obstacles, while we ourselves can't really take all that much damage. I think it's like 1 or 2 hits and we are gone. I like the aesthetic of the game. It kind of, in a way, reminds me of Zombies Ate My Neighbors, of course, by the fact that we're being chased by undead squirrels and people at the moment. Now, the game does have a focus on puzzle solving and platforming. And the demo of the Pearl that we played splits or switches between different areas to show off these different mechanics. The problem is that as the game tries to add more puzzle and just more mechanics to it, it doesn't feel as refined, or at least not as refined as it should be in this prologue. For instance, I had a lot of problems sometimes making these kinds of glide jumps, where the umbrella has to be used to give yourself that little extra hang time. The controls are okay. This is one of those games that tries to make do with or make use of a lot of the buttons on your gamepad. You'll have to do running, jumping, switching between various items, making use of them, and so on and so forth. And I tried to rebind the keys, and in the prologue there was not the option to do that. I don't know if they're going to add that in or if it is in this current update. But where I kind of fell out of favor with Mayhem came with the third section of the prologue. In this part, we have to maneuver through these dark areas using a torch to keep the radioactive bats away before they melt me, as you see there, while spiders are trying to put it out. And the chief mechanic is that you're supposed to use bait to distract the spiders while moving through the areas with your torch. And I just found this to be a very annoying section. It didn't seem like I was being given the right items to make use of. And this is further compounded by the fact that your bait is consumable. Meaning that if you miss a shot and you try to reapply it and you don't have the ammo, you're kind of screwed. And I think I sort of soft-locked myself because I ran out of the bait that we needed and I couldn't get back to where it was located. And for a game that is focused on making the bait or making these kinds of consumables a major focus, it felt very cumbersome having to constantly manage my inventory of all these items, and again, with the fact that the controls didn't feel all that refined, didn't help matters either. And it's a shame, as I like the story, I think the game has a very strong aesthetic to it, but unless they can really improve the UI and the UX, I don't know if this game is going to be interesting enough to kind of get around those complaints. For our last game, we're looking at Arboria. This is a title that's probably one of the strangest aesthetics I think we've seen. It kind of gives off, I don't know why, like a Muppet or Fraggle Rock kind of look to it. Maybe just because everything has kind of like a rock golem kind of aesthetic to it. But our story is that a strange hat has been found that's turning these guardians evil. And the village of trolls' only response is to basically brew new characters to define and destroy this hat in of course, a procedurally generated world. You'll choose a character that is kind of randomly created, and I think kind of similar to what they did with Rogue Legacy, that as you play and unlock more of the persistent elements, you'll be able to craft higher quality characters to give you a leg up when you start playing. And the game definitely has a very weird and off-putting aesthetic to it, and I think that kind of helps make it stand out. Unfortunately, the gameplay, or at least from when we play this is on early access, wasn't really working for me. It felt kind of like a lower budget Souls-like. Combat is very floaty, and your character makes a lot of wide and very slow motions. So this is one of those games where it's very easy for something to attack you either on or off screen while you're in the middle of an attack, and there's not much you can do about it. The game promotes having different weapons and spell abilities you get access to, and there is persistence in the form of finding these kinds of cores that have been corrupted in the cave, and by unlocking them, it will provide you with unique unlocks, or basically give you more things in the persistent side of things. And while that is certainly good, this game reminds me in a way of, again, a lot of these other games that try to mirror Souls design. But if the basic combat or gameplay just doesn't feel responsive or able to keep up with the gameplay loop, then the entire experience just kind of falls apart because of it. And this feels, again, like one of those tales that it is supposed to be very frustrating and hard to play when you begin, and then the persistent elements start to open things up, make things a lot easier for you to enjoy it. But again, you shouldn't have to find the fun in a roguelike, Souls-like, roguelite, or however you want to describe it. And if this game wants to succeed, then I think they need to improve the combat engine and just the basic systems. Because it has a really great and wacky aesthetic to it, but again, it needs more to make all that come together. But with that said, we're going to wrap up this video here. I would like to thank all developers who submitted games. You'll find links to their titles in the description down below. And again, if you are working on an upcoming or recent release game and are trying to find somebody to cover it, please get in touch. We do these streams, again, every Wednesday night, and check out our Discord and Patreon link down below. That's going to do it for this Indie Dev Spotlight, and I will see you next time with another selection of very interesting and different indie games. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed things, be sure to do all the liking and subscribing that the kids are doing these days. Check out our Discord channel link down below where we hang out and chat game design, and come back later tonight for our regular streamings. But that's it, and tune in for more great content here and on Game Wisdom, where we examine the art and science of games.